is a scientist after all? A curious human being looking through a keyhole, the keyhole of nature, trying to know what's going on. Hello everyone, welcome to the virtual class. And in this class, we peep in the keyhole of nature to look into the world of algae and study one of their yellow-green genus in detail, that is Vaucheria. Before we start, meet Saurabh, who just like you is a budding scientist and like you has lots of questions to ask during the lesson. You can also put your questions in the comment section and I will try answering all of them. Saurabh has a question here. He wants to know what are algae? Well, हिंदी में बोले तो काई. Algae actually is an informal term for a large and diverse group of unicellular or multicellular eukaryotic non-flowering plants. Algae mostly occur in water. They are found in fresh water, salt water, or also on moist grounds. These plants, they are autotrophic and have chlorophyll and other pigments, but they lack true stems, roots and leaves. That is, their plant body is not highly differentiated and lacks vascular tissues, xylem and phloem. Another important feature of algae that distinguishes them from other thallophytes is that their sex organs are not surrounded by a sterile jacket. Well, in this lesson, we are going to focus on a yellow-green alga, Vaucheria. Vaucheria belongs to class Xanthophyceae. Commonly, this alga is called as water felt and is named as Vaucheria after the Swiss botanist John Pierre Vaucher. The genus Vaucheria is represented by 276 species world over, out of which 9 species have been reported from India. The common Indian species of Vaucheria are Vaucheria amphibia, Vaucheria geminata, Vaucheria polysperma, Vaucheria sessilis, and Vaucheria unicinata. Earlier, Vaucheria with 3 other genera, Vaucheriopsis, Dichotmosiphon, and Pseudodichotmosiphon, was put in the family Vaucheriaceae under the order Siphonales of the class Chlorophyceae. But due to the discovery of features such as the absence of chlorophyll B and the presence of chlorophyll E, excess of carotenoids over chlorophyll, absence of siphonin and siphonoxanthin. Now these two xanthophylls, they occur in the members of order Siphonales but they do not occur in Vaucheria. Then the reserve food material is in the form of oil in Vaucheria and unequal length of the paired flagella of the compound zoospore, and because of all these reasons and features, Vaucheria was removed from Chlorophyceae and was included in Xanthophyceae. At present, Vaucheria is the only genus in the family Vaucheriaceae of class Xanthophyceae. Vaucheria species are aquatic and they occur as clusters of interwoven rough-to-touch threads. Majority species of Vaucheria are found in fresh water like ponds, ditches and on the banks of slow-flowing streams. The genus prefers shallow water, that is, it is not found in deep water. Some species are terrestrial, for example, Vaucheria sessilis, and are found growing on moist soil where they form green velvety mats. About Six species of Vaucheria are marine, for example, Vaucheria pyloboloides. And in some places, the alga grows so abundantly that it looks like a green fur covering the whole sea floor. The gas can accumulate under the dense vegetation, and when poked in, it can come out in the form of bubbles. Let me show you a short video clipping. This video was taken during a free dive to a depth of 2.5 meters in a shallow bay. In this video, you can see the entire bottom of the bay is covered by an alga which forms a green furry mat, and when the alga was identified, it was found to be Vaucheria. Let's study Vaucheria in detail and understand its thallus structure, the reproduction, that is the types of reproduction. All three types of reproduction are reported in Vaucheria. So our second topic would be vegetative reproduction. We'll be studying the asexual reproduction in Vaucheria, the sexual reproduction in Vaucheria, and finally we will be focusing on the life cycle of Vaucheria. Let's start with the thallus structure. Saurav has a question here. He wants to know what is a thallus. Well, that's an important question. You should be very clear about what actually a thallus is before we proceed with this topic. Well, a thallus is a plant body that is not differentiated into true roots, shoots, and leaves. For example, algae, fungi, lichens, and bryophytes have plant bodies known as thallus. A plant body that is a thallus shows lots of variations and can be as small as a single cell. It can be a filament, or it can be a plate of cells, or it can be as big as tree. Now, these tree-like forms may have structures resembling roots, shoots, and leaves, but they are not considered as true roots, shoots, or leaves because they lack vascular tissues, that is xylem and phloem. I hope you have an understanding of the thallus now. In simple words, a plant body that is not differentiated into true roots, shoots, and leaves is a thallus. Now, let's move on to the thallus structure of Vaucheria. You have just seen that Vaucheria occurs as integrated tangled threads or as green velvety mats. See, these are the tangled threads that have been collected from the natural habitat. And if you put few of these threads on a glass slide and observe under the microscope, you will see yellowish green, cylindrical, snake-like branch filaments twisted over each other. Let's study these filamentous structure in details with the help of diagrams. Thallus of Vaucheria is an acellular, multinucleate, branched filamentous structure. Branching occurs at irregular intervals and is lateral but sometimes appears dichotomous. In the terrestrial species, the thallus is attached to the substratum by a small tuft of colorless rhizoids or a lobed hapteron. A very interesting feature of Vaucheria filament is that the protoplast is not divided into individual cells. by means of cross walls or septa. That is, karyokinesis or nuclear division during the growth is not followed by cytokinesis, and all the nuclei they occur together in a common protoplast, and therefore the protoplast is continuous along the entire length of the filament, and also the same protoplast it extends into the branches without any break. मतलब न्यूक्लियर डिवीजन के बाद साइटोप्लाज्मिक डिवीजन नहीं होता, और इसके कारण पूरी फिलामेंट और ब्रांचेस में एक ही कंटिन्यूअस मल्टी न्यूक्लिएटेड प्रोटोप्लास्ट होता है. And this type of multinucleated condition with continuous protoplast is known as syncytic. Now, septa occur, septa that is the cross wall, it occurs only during the injury and in the formation of reproductive structure. Of course, septa are needed to seal the injury because otherwise the entire protoplast would flow out and the thallus would be empty if there is some injury to the branch or to the main filament, because there are no cross walls, and if there is injury the entire protoplast would come out of the thallus. The cell wall of the filament is two layered. So here you can see that the cell wall is two layered. The outer layer is composed of pectic substances and inner layer is made of cellulose. In the center of the filament, now this is this portion of the thallus that is magnified. So you can see the double layered cell wall here, outer layer made up of pectic substances, inner made of cellulose. In the center of the filament there is a big vacuole, and this big vacuole it continues throughout the length of the filament and the branches. Like I just told you, the cytoplasm lies between the vacuole and the cell wall. So this entire structure between the vacuole and the cell wall is the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm contains the usual membrane bound organelles such as nuclei, chromatophores. Here the chromatophores they are labeled as chloroplasts. I'll just tell you what actually are the chromatophores. So cytoplasm contains nuclei, chromatophores, mitochondria, dictyosomes, vesicles, almost all the organelles that are present in the eukaryotic cells. The nuclei are scattered. Here you can see if we cut through the transverse section, the nuclei are scattered near the vacuole, while the elliptical chromatophores they form the outer layer. So in the vegetative thallus, the nuclei they occupy the inner position to the chromatophores. The chromatophores contain chlorophyll A, E and carotenoids. They lack chlorophyll B and paranoids are absent. Now you must be wondering what are chromatophores? Well, chromatophores are plastids which in addition to chlorophyll have excess of other pigments. For example, in Vaucheria they have excess of carotenoids, and when the carotenoids they are present in excess they give yellow green color to the alga that belong to Xanthophyceae. The reserve food material occurs in the form of a lipid body or fat and gets stored within the cytoplasm in the form of number of countless droplets. Now, the growth of the filament is restricted to the apex. Notice here in this diagram, this is the apex. Okay, the apical region has large number of vesicles, mitochondria and dictyosome as well as endoplasmic reticulum. In the subapical zone, chromatophores, Nuclei with endoplasmic reticulum and mitochondria associated with dictyosomes occur. Now, this region is the vacuolated region or the vacuolated zone. Here are present the chromatophores, nuclei, endoplasmic reticulum, and mitochondria along with dictyosome. Inside the vacuole are found the lipid droplets. These lipid droplets are derived from the chloroplast, and along with are present various crystals which may be the byproduct of the degenerating chloroplast. Saurabh has a question here. What kind of organism is Vaucheria? Unicellular, multicellular, or any other? Well, it is wrong to call Vaucheria as a unicellular organism. First, the filament doesn't look like a compartment or a cell at all. As you have just seen, it's a long branched acellular structure. And secondly, it possesses all the features of a multicellular organism. For example, it has many nuclei, organelles, etc. But notice at the same time, it lacks septa between different nuclei, thus cannot be called multicellular either. So, what should we call it? So, it is appropriate to call Vaucheria as an acellular synocytic organism rather than a unicellular or a multicellular form. Moreover, in unicellular organisms, growth consists of an increase in size of the entire cell. And I have just told you that growth in Vaucheria is apical. So we cannot use the term unicellular for Vaucheria. We cannot use the term multicellular for Vaucheria. The right term we can use is acellular cynocytic. Now, the cytoplasm of Vaucheria, it shows cytoplasmic streaming, and it is the most conspicuous feature of Vaucheria. Cytoplasmic streaming helps to circulate the materials within the Vaucheria's very large cells. Cytoplasmic streaming takes place in the area of the large central vacuole and directly involves the nuclei, mitochondria, dictyosome, and chromatophores. I hope the thallus structure of Vaucheria is clear to you, that it is a branched filamentous acellular cynocytic structure. Let's move on to the next topic, that is the reproduction in Vaucheria. Vaucheria reproduces by all three methods of reproduction: vegetative reproduction, asexual reproduction, sexual reproduction. Let's study each one of them in detail one by one. So the first type of reproduction is vegetative reproduction. Vegetative reproduction occurs through fragmentation. In this method, the thallus breaks up accidentally into short segments, and each segment ultimately forms a new individual. So, in Vaucheria, when the thallus accidentally breaks up into pieces, each piece can grow into a new individual. Moving on to our next topic. Our next topic is asexual reproduction in Vaucheria. In Vaucheria, the asexual reproduction takes place by different methods depending upon the habitat in which the alga lives. In aquatic species, the asexual reproduction occurs by the formation of zoospores. terrestrial species only form zoospores only when they get flooded. Zoospore formation is the most common method of asexual reproduction in aquatic forms of Wucheria. It has been studied that factors like low light intensity, change of medium from running to still water, poor concentration of nutrients, and darkness are the factors that enhance the formation of zoospores. Now, the zoospores are formed inside the special structures known as the zoosporangium. At the time of formation of zoosporangium, the tip portion of a side branch swells. Any branch on the main filament, it can function as the zoosporangium. At the time of formation of the zoosporangium, the tip portion of a side branch, it swells and it becomes club shaped. Dense protoplasm carrying a large number of nuclei and chromatophores, they flow into the swelling, and the upper swollen portion gets separated from the rest of the portion by means of a septum. And this septum, it delimits the terminal sporangium from the rest of the filament. Remember, although Wucheria doesn't have septa, but septa do appear at the time of reproduction to delimit the reproductive structure. So here the upper portion gets differentiated into the zoosporangium, and the lower portion becomes a stalk and it gets separated. This zoosporangium gets separated from rest of the filament by means of the septa. Now, due to the migration of protoplasm in the swelling or the zoosporangium, the central vacuole in the zoosporangium, it is reduced in size, and the young zoosporangium becomes dark green in color. A very interesting phenomena happens now. Now you remember when we were studying the vegetative structure of the thallus, I told you that the nuclei, they occupy the position closer to the central vacuole, and the chromatophores, they occupy the outer position. Now here, at the time of zoospore formation, the nuclei exchange their position with chromatophores. That is, the nuclei now come to lie external to the chromatophores, that is towards the plasma membrane. They shift their position from the inner position to the outer position. Gradually, now the protoplast shrink from the wall. Protoplasm, it is it shrinks from the cell wall, and as soon as it contracts, a pair of unequal flagella develops opposite each nucleus. You see, in this red, these are the chromatophores, and these black ones, they are the nuclei, and these thread-like structures, these are the unequal flagella. And now the entire protoplast inside the zoosporangium gets converted into a single large multinucleated zoospore. So the entire protoplast, it gets converted into multinucleated zoospore. Zoospore thus produced is a large oval or pear-shaped multinucleated, multiflagellated and yellow-green structure. This zoospore, which has been formed inside the zoosporangium, it comes out through a narrow aperture. A narrow aperture is formed, and this aperture is formed by the gelatinization of the wall at the distal end. This is the distal end, at the distal end of the zoosporangium. The zoospores are usually liberated early in the morning. The multinucleated and multiflagellated zoospores are very peculiar to Vaucheria, and they are called as synzoospores or compound zoospores. All other genera related to it produce small biflagellated uninucleated zoospores developed in large numbers in each zoosporangium. So that means the protoplast in other genera, it divides, and as the protoplast divides, each divided protoplast develops into one single zoospore. But in Vaucheria, the entire protoplast, it matures or metamorphoses into one single multinucleated multiflagellated zoospore, and it is a characteristic feature of Vaucheria. So such zoospore, they are called as synzoospores or they are called as compound zoospores. The liberated zoospore swims in water for some time and comes to rest on a substratum. As it comes to rest on a substratum, it withdraws its flagella. And as it withdraws its flagella, now it secretes a thin wall around it. Remember, when it came out, it was just a mass of protoplast, a naked mass of protoplast. But now, as it settles down, it withdraws flagella and now develops a wall around it and starts germinating. It germinates by giving out one or two or more tubular outgrowths. One of the tubular outgrowths forms the haptron, which helps it to attach to the substratum, and the other outgrowth goes on to form the vegetative filament of Vaucheria. So this is the most common type of asexual reproduction in Vaucheria through zoospore formation, and synzoospore are the characteristic feature of Vaucheria. Saurav has a question here. He wants to know, why are zoospores of Vaucheria called compound zoospores? That's a very good question. Well, it is possible that the zoospore of Vaucheria is a compound structure formed as a result of the failure of the division of protoplast within the zoosporangium into uninucleate biflagellated zoospores. Thus, it is termed as a compound zoospore or synzoospore. मतलब कि one single protoplast which is multinucleated, it can form several uninucleated biflagellated zoospore. But when this protoplast, it does not divide and the entire content, they form one single zoospore. So that zoospore is a combination of several uninucleated biflagellated zoospore and therefore is known as a compound zoospore. Now, this viewpoint needs to be supported by facts, and the two facts are that there is the presence of central vacuole of parent zoosporangium, and each nucleus has got a paired flagella opposite to it. So that means the single nucleus with two flagella and a little bit of protoplast has the capacity to form one single zoospore. But since the protoplast does not divide, it can be rightly said that this entire zoospore is a synzoospore or a compound zoospore. Another type of asexual reproduction in Vaucheria is through aplanospore formation. Now, aplanospore formation usually occurs in terrestrial individuals. Instead of producing zoospores, which are the motile spores, terrestrial individuals produce non-motile spores called aplanospores. spores. The aquatic species produce aplanospores rarely. The aplanospores develop in Aplanosporangia, which develop at the ends of short lateral or terminal branches. Aplanosporangia, like Zoosporangia, are club-shaped structures and they are formed in the same manner as Zoosporangia. That means a tubular branch or a lateral branch, it becomes swollen because of the migration of protoplasts, and the upper portion of the branch gets separated from the rest of the filament by means of septum. Inside the planosporangium, the entire protoplast metamorphoses or forms a single rounded thin-walled aplanospore, and the planospore simply drops out from the planosporangia by the irregular rupture of the sporangial wall or by gelatinization of the sporangial wall, and it germinates to form the new thallus. And remember, the planospores, they are non-motile spores and they do not have any flagella. The third type of asexual reproduction in Vaucheria, it occurs by the formation of echinids. Echinids are produced under extreme desiccation or low temperature in some aquatic and terrestrial species of Vaucheria. In this condition, the branched filaments, they divide into row of short segments by thick gelatinous cross walls. That means the protoplast, it divides into pieces and each piece is surrounded by thick gelatinous cross walls, and each piece is a resting multinucleated thick walled segment, and each piece is loaded with reserve food material, that is the oil. These pieces, they are known as the echinids. They are also known as hypnospores and sometimes also are referred as the cysts. These structures, as you can see, these are produced in branches in rows, and at this point Vaucheria resembles a green alga, Gongrosera. This is Gongrosera, another green alga, and hence this stage is known as a Gongrosera stage because when the alga Vaucheria, it has got these food-filled segments in the branch structures, it resembles Gongrosera, and hence the stage is also known as the Gongrosera stage. Let's take a few seconds break and then continue with the lesson. Meanwhile, you can have a drink of water or stretch a little. So far, we have studied the thallus structure of Vaucheria, vegetative reproduction in Vaucheria, asexual reproduction in Vaucheria, and now our next topic is the sexual reproduction in Vaucheria. Sexual reproduction in Vaucheria is of oogamous type, that is, the male and the female gametes are produced inside the distinct and specialized sex organs. The male sex organ is known as antheridium and the female sex organs are known as oogonia. Most of the species of Vaucheria are monoecious, that is, they are homothallic, in which both the sex organs are born on the same thallus. For example, all the freshwater or terrestrial forms of Vaucheria are homothallic. Marine species like Vaucheria dichotoma or Vaucheria litoria are dioecious, that is, they are heterothallic, where male and female sex organs are born on different thalli. Like I just told you, the male sex organ is called as antheridium. Here you see on the filaments of Vaucheria, this hook-shaped structure is the male sex organ, that is the antheridium, and there are these two, they are the oogonia. These globular structures, they are the oogonia. Now, there is great variation in the arrangement of sex organs in different species of Vaucheria. In the monoecious species, the Antheridia and Oogonia, as you can see, the Antheridia and Oogonia, again this is the Antheridium and this is the Oogonium. The Antheridia and the Oogonia, they usually occur close together at intervals along the same filament arising as a lateral outgrowth. That means in the monoecious species, the Antheridia and the Oogonia occur close to one another at intervals along the same filament arising as a lateral outgrowth. The sex organs, they may be sessile or they may be stalked. Now, depending upon whether the sex organs they are sessile or they are stalked, there are two very common Indian species, that are Vaucheria sessilis and Vaucheria geminata. In Vaucheria sessilis, the sex organs are directly formed on the main filament and they are not stalked. While in Vaucheria geminata, the sex organs are developed on the special branches. The special branch consists of a stalk that bears a terminal hook-shaped antheridium and number of lateral oogonia. That means there is a special stalk which bears the antheridia at the tip and the lateral oogonia. In Vaucheria, the mature antheridium is a cylindrical, slender, tubular structure and is strongly curved like a horn or a hook. The young antheridium contains cytoplasm, nuclei, and chromoplast. At maturity, it contains numerous male gametes or sperms. The female sex organ, that is the oogonium, is a spherical or an ovoid structure. It is sometimes sessile or it can be subsessile and is separated from the filament by a cross wall at its base, and it develops a short rounded beak at the tip towards the maturity. The mature oogonium contains a single large nucleus located in the center and several chromatophores. There is lot of reserve food material in the form of oil droplets. The protoplasmic contents of the oogonium, they round off to form a single large cell or an ovum or the female gamete. Now, this species is Vaucheria sessilis. This species on which the sex organs are born on a stalk, this species is Vaucheria geminata. I hope now it is clear the difference between the Vaucheria sessilis and Vaucheria geminata species. Coming to the formation of the sex organs, how the sex organs they are formed in Vaucheria. Now, the oogonium arises as a lateral outgrowth on the main filament or on a branch. This is called as oogonial initial. It swells and accumulates a dense protoplasm containing number of chromatophores, nuclei and oil globules. Finally, only one nucleus. See, there are number of nuclei in this oogonium, but before laying down of the septum, only one nucleus will remain in the oogonium and the rest will migrate back into the filament or they will degenerate. Now the entire protoplast rounds off to form one single female gamete, and as the protoplast rounds off, a septa appears at the base of the oogonium and it delimits the oogonium from the rest of the filament. At maturity, a beak-like structure develops, and below this there is a receptive spot where it is going to receive the sperms. Cell wall of the beak, it gelatinizes and forms a pore for the entry of the enterozoids. And now coming to the formation of the antheridium. Antheridium arises as a lateral outgrowth. It elongates and becomes curved like a hook. Nuclei and chromatophores migrate into this curved portion. Later, this curved portion is cut off from the rest of the portion to form the antheridium proper. Now, the upper part of the curved portion becomes the antheridium and the lower part forms the stalk. Now, there are number of nuclei, chromatophores and the protoplast is present in this terminal portion. Now, for the formation of the enterozoids, the cytoplasmic cleavage occurs and each nucleus becomes surrounded by little mass of cytoplasm, and this protoplasmic entity now differentiates into an enterozoid or the male gamete. That means now each nucleus becomes surrounded by little mass of cytoplasm and develops a pair of flagella, and now this protoplasmic entity metamorphoses to form the male gamete or an enterozoid or a sperm. Now the sperms, they are liberated out by gelatinization of the wall of the antheridium at the tip. Each enterozoid, as I will show you in the next slide, it is minute, pear-shaped, colorless structure with two laterally inserted flagella of unequal length. Flagella are opposite to each other, shorter one pointing forwards and longer one pointing backwards. So here you can see the sperms that are liberated by gelatinization of the tip of the antheridium, and each enterozoid is small, very minute, a pear-shaped structure, colorless structure with two laterally inserted flagella. These thread-like structures you see, they are the flagella and they are of unequal length. The shorter one is pointing forwards and longer one points backwards. Now, coming to the fertilization, both the sex organs open, that is antheridium or the oogonium, they open simultaneously, and oogonium opens a little before the antheridium. At the tip of the beak, this is the tip of the beak, a pore is formed where a colorless cytoplasm oozes out of the oogonium. At this stage, the chromatophores and oil droplets move to the center of the ovum, which is surrounded by a colorless layer of lining of cytoplasm. Several sperms, they get emitted from the antheridium and they gather around this mass of protoplasm that was oozing out, and they gather around this beak and enter the oogonium through the pore in the oogonial wall. But only one of them is able to enter the oosphere at the receptive spot. I just told you that just beneath the beak there is the receptive spot. So as the oogonium gelatinizes at the beak area and the cytoplasm oozes out, it attracts these enterozoids, and several enterozoids they surround the open beak, but only one is able to penetrate the receptive spot. So the enterozoids, the successful enterozoid enters inside. Now the protoplast, the two protoplasts, they fuse together. The nucleus of the enterozoid lies very close to the female nucleus. It is quite smaller in size as compared to the female nucleus. But as it comes to lie to its side, it increases in size and becomes swollen to nearly the same volume as the female, and then it fuses with the female nucleus. Okay, so here you can say it fuses with the female nucleus, and a membrane is formed around the oogonial aperture after fertilization so as not to allow any more enterozoids inside. Now, after the fusion of the two nuclei and the protoplast, the structure that is formed is known as the zygote. Okay, so the female gamete is also known as the ovum. It is also known as the oosphere. After the fusion of the male and the female nucleus and the two protoplasts of the male and the female, now the structure that is formed is known as the zygote. This zygote secretes a thick wall around itself and is now known as oospore. Okay, so the wall of the oospore is very thick and it protects the zygote in the earlier situations before it gets germinated. Now the wall of the oogonia gets decayed and this oospore it gets liberated. It now undergoes a period of rest. Now, on the return of the favorable conditions, the diploid nucleus of the zygote undergoes meiosis and subsequent mitosis. Now the zygote germinates and gives out a tubular outgrowth and forms the new thallus. Let's summarize the life cycle of Vaucheria. The vegetative plant body is a haploid gametophyte. It reproduces asexually by the formation of synzospore, aplanospores or akinase. Sexual reproduction is of oogamous type and like we have just discussed and occurs by the fusion of the male and the female gametes produced inside Enthredia and Oogonia respectively. The zygote liberates and germinates to form the new thallus. But at the time of its germination, the first division that occurs in the zygote is meiosis and then is followed by number of mitotic division. This type of life cycle is known as haplontic life cycle, in which the dominant phase is haploid and the diploid phase is just represented by the zygote, which undergoes meiosis and restores the haploid generation. With this, we come to the end of the lesson. Let's summarize what you have just learned. We have studied the thallus structure, the vegetative reproduction, the asexual reproduction, the sexual reproduction, and life cycle of Vaucheria. Now, as we come to the end of the lesson, I would like you to comment. Did you find the lesson interesting, or was it just right? Or did you find the content difficult? Do let me know in the comment section. Now, these are some of the suggested URLs for the lesson. The diagrams used in the lesson have been drawn by Saurabh, a BSc third year student of ST College, Ambala, Kent. I suggest that you also practice the diagrams and try understanding the concept through diagrams only. Study of botany would become interesting and easier that way. And of course, you would fetch better marks. Hope you enjoyed the lesson. Thank you for patiently hearing and keep learning.